It was a day of celebration in the village of Aoma. The air vibrated with excitement as the elders gathered, draped in their ceremonial robes, their faces etched with wisdom passed down through generations. The sun, a brilliant orb hanging above the savannah, cast a warm golden glow on everything it touched. The thatched roofs of the huts, the dirt paths leading to the river, and the faces of the villagers, all adorned in their finest clothing. At the center of this village stood Nia, the bride to be. She wore an intricate gown woven from the fibers of the wild silk moth, adorned with beads from the river's edge. The gold beads, symbols of fertility, prosperity, and lineage, glinted in the sunlight as she moved gracefully through the crowd. Her heart, however, was a mix of excitement and quiet trepidation. Today, she would bind herself to Jabari, a man chosen by her family, a warrior known for his strength and valor in battle. But Nia was not just any village girl. She had always been different. While others in the village embraced the teachings of their mothers and elders without question, Nia found herself pondering the world in ways that others did not. The roles of women, the expectations of wives, these things were drilled into her from an early age. She would be strong for her husband, silent in her duties, and unyielding in her support. But as the ceremony began, a gnawing sense of doubt grew in her heart. Jabari, too, felt the weight of tradition pressing against his shoulders. He stood at the edge of the gathering, his tall frame draped in a ceremonial lion skin, the scars of battle visible on his chest. The crowd cheered as Nia made her way toward him, but Jabari's gaze remained fixed on her. He saw not the beautiful bride, but a woman carrying the burden of her own expectations, a woman he could not yet fully understand. His hands, though strong and weathered from years of training, trembled slightly as he clutched his palm wine, the drink meant to symbolize the union of their spirits. Their marriage was not just a bond of love, it was a pact of survival, of family, of duty. Both knew that. But deep inside, neither was fully prepared for the complexities of what lay ahead. The elders called for the sacred fire, a flame passed from generation to generation. And as they danced around it, chanting prayers to the ancestors, Nia felt an overwhelming sense of displacement. She had always known the expectations of a wife, but what about the expectations of her own heart? No one had ever asked her what she wanted, what she dreamed of. Later that night, as the village feasted and the drums echoed across the savannah, Nia stood alone in the doorway of the hut that would soon become her home. The night was still, save for the crackle of the fire and the distant chirp of the crickets. Jabari entered, his face etched with the same uncertainty that she felt. Jabari, she whispered, her voice trembling. What happens now? He looked at her, and for the first time since the ceremony, his gaze softened. We live, Nia. We live as we have been taught, by our elders, by our traditions. Our ancestors watch over us. But Nia, her heart heavy with the unspoken, could not accept those words. But what if that's not enough? She asked. What if there is more to us than just duty? Jabari's face hardened. I do not understand, he replied. Nia turned away, walking into the night. The cool air of the savannah kissed her skin, but it did little to calm her racing thoughts. She found herself at the great baobab tree, the ancient sentinel that stood at the edge of the village, its roots sprawling deep into the earth, like the veins of the land itself. She had spent countless hours beneath its shade, listening to the winds that whispered through its branches, as if it carried the voices of the past. Here, under the great tree, Nia allowed herself to cry. The tears she had held back, the fears and doubts flowed freely. What was she to do with a life so mapped out, with a future so rigidly defined? Jabari, back in the hut, stood in silence. He had seen Nia's distress, but he was unsure how to comfort her. His own fears echoed in his chest, a quiet desperation he could not express. He had fought battles with spears and swords, but how could he fight the battle within his heart? How could he fight the battle of love when he did not understand its shape? The next morning, as the first rays of dawn touched the land, Nia sought out Mamola, the wise elder of the village, whose words had always been a beacon of clarity for the women of Aoma. Mamola's hut was small, but filled with the smell of herbs and incense, the walls lined with woven baskets and prayer charms. Nia entered and sat across from Mamola, her eyes red from the previous night's tears. Mamola, she began, her voice shaking. I do not know what to do. I am trapped between the customs of our people and the yearning of my own heart. I feel as though I do not belong in this world. Mamola looked at her with understanding. Child, you carry the weight of many generations. The village's customs are strong, but they are not meant to crush you. They are meant to guide you. But what if the customs do not fit me? Nia asked. What if the role of wife and mother feels like a cage? Mamola smiled softly, the lines of her face creasing with the wisdom of age. No one can walk the path of life alone, Nia. You will not walk it alone, for you have your husband. But you must learn to speak, to ask questions. No tradition is perfect. You must take what is wise and leave what does not serve you. Nia's heart lifted, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. But Jabari, she hesitated. How can I ask him questions when he is also burdened by his own fears? Mamala's eyes twinkled with mischief. That is the task of both of you, child. Marriage is not the joining of two perfect souls. It is the joining of two souls that will grow, that will learn together. Do not fear the unknown. Embrace it. With Mamala's words in her heart, Nia returned to Jabari. He stood at the edge of the village, looking out over the vast expanse of the savannah, his back straight as though the weight of the world was still on his shoulders. I have something to say, Nia called out, her voice strong. Jabari turned to face her, his eyes searching hers. I do not know what this marriage will look like, Nia said, but I do know that I cannot walk it alone. We must walk it together, as partners, not just as husband and wife, but as two people learning who we are. Jabari's face softened, and for the first time, Nia saw the man beneath the warrior, the vulnerable man who had long carried the burden of solitude. I will walk with you, Nia. We will learn together. And so they did. The journey was not easy, but it was theirs. It was a journey of understanding, of patience, and of growth. They learned to question together, to seek wisdom not only from the elders, but from each other. Their love was not forged in silence, but in dialogue, in the quiet moments when they shared their fears, their dreams, and their doubts. The village of Aoma continued to sing its songs and carry its traditions, but within the heart of Nia and Jabari, a new kind of love was born, one that was not bound by the past, but shaped by the future they would create together.